Morning. Welcome to Coffee and Cosmos with Robin. My name's Robin Fritz, and I'm an intuitive and spiritual consultant, certified past life regression specialist. And today I want to talk about how we handle a crisis, how we respond to a crisis, and what that means to us, body, mind, and spirit. So, actually, it's a perfect topic for us to talk about today. I'd love it if you share maybe how you handled a crisis. But for the most part, chime in, let me know who you are, where you're joining us from. And I'm going to talk about how we handle a crisis and my personal experience with it, which is bringing this up. And also, I would love to do a few quick readings for you if we have time in these few moments together. So, again, welcome. My name is Robin Fritz. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and I'm an intuitive and spiritual consultant and certified past life regression specialist. And with luck, I get to join you here every week at 11 a.m. Pacific time to talk about things related to body, mind, and spirit, which is our whole lives, right? And to interact. This is a space for us to come together, to grow and learn together in our constant job in human bodies of growing our soul in our bodies, which as humans is a really tough job. So today, hi, thanks for chiming in. And I know probably all of us have had crises. I mean, that's like the most common incident that we have. I've met people who didn't like lose a loved one to death until they were in their 40s, for example, but most of us have a crisis of some kind or another. And recently I had a crisis with my 4.5-year-old dog, Ollie. And in reflecting on it, I thought this is a great opportunity to share with the community kind of my reaction to other people's reaction and what body, mind, and spirit can teach us about crises. So the first thing I think we need to know in a crisis is how we respond to them. And I am a person, and I think it goes also towards how our intuition runs. We are clear seeing, clear feeling, clear knowing, clear hearing. And I'm all of those, but I'm particularly clear knowing. And it's kind of interesting because when there's a crisis involved, I'm the one you want to call because I go cold and very analytical, and I can just see all the connections between things. So a couple weeks ago, my dog Ollie and I and the cat Karis were stretched out in bed. They're relaxing, and I'm reading a book, and it's bedtime. And Ollie had somehow been injured a few weeks before that, and we were taking it easy, didn't know quite what was wrong. And all of a sudden, he started screaming, and at the top of his lungs, which is terrifying. In fact, when I talked with his vet the next day, he said, yeah, you never want to hear an animal make that sound. He was clearly in serious pain all of a sudden. And I'm like, oh my God, like what just happened? And so the long and short of it is I wrapped my arms around him to keep him stable because as he leaped to his feet, I saw he couldn't put weight on his right front leg. So something terrible, something catastrophic had happened just as he was lying there. So I got a friend out of bed. We went to the ER in the middle of the night. They diagnosed some issue. They weren't sure what it was and gave him an opioid injection. You know, sometimes those things are great, just to give him some pain relief. And the next day I took him to his doctor for a more thorough exam and x-rays. And it turned out he has a very serious issue, a compression of a vertebra in his neck, which probably happened as an accident when I wasn't home. So here's the thing. When you have a crisis, you don't know when it's going to show up, right? It's right there in front of you. But what interested me the most was people's reaction to that. And I thought we could talk about how we share in these kinds of situations and how we respond to other people in crisis, and in our own particular situations, and looking at it from the aspects of body, mind, and spirit. So as it turned out, Ollie's situation is life-threatening. And we don't know what the end result will be, although I'm happy to say that he's doing much better. And I'm hoping that because he's young and vigorous and healthy, this accident, whatever he had, will resolve itself and he'll be fine and healthy for years to come. But there are potential complications. And one of those is that he may have to have very difficult, complicated surgery, and that is life-threatening. So when you're looking at a crisis and something happens, how do you respond? So my response, as always, is to look at all the options. Remember, I'm the one who goes cold in an emergency and just checks all the boxes. What do we do here? And if there's a group of people, I'm like telling everybody what to do. And it all works because that's just how I work. But not everybody's like that. I've seen a lot of people just fall apart in a crisis and be unable to react. But I like to know the options and I like to think about them. And this is where I think the body, mind, spirit aspect comes in for all of us when we're dealing with a crisis. So in terms of body, once we've got the crisis under control, once we had Ollie on medication and we knew what the issue was, then we had options. And the best option was to wait and see how he recovers, because the majority of animals who have this kind of injury do fine after a couple of weeks. But I'm running through the other options. If he has to have surgery, what is it going to cost? What does the recovery time look like? How are we going to handle it in a household where I am handicapped? And 2 weeks in, I'm struggling to get him up and down the stairs by carrying him. Thinking about all of these things and just acknowledging them. Also, acknowledging that this thing happened, this is a serious situation. How do I feel about it? When guilt pops up, how do I deal with that guilt? Like, could I have recognized this sooner? What would I have done differently? And not to beat myself up, but just to acknowledge all the various possibilities and how I respond to them. That, for me, works to keep me sane. Also, gives me the ideas that I need to research so that I can go out and figure out what all my options are, what's going on, how do people handle this, how do I feel about all of those different options. So there's a little bit of body and mind coming in there, right? And figuring out the different aspects also brings up self-doubt. Can I afford this? What does Ollie think? What does he want to do? What would his life look like being handicapped? All of these kinds of things. So that I wasn't looking at an unknown, but I was looking at possibilities. And not always the greatest possibilities. Now, there are some people, as I discovered, who don't want to think about any of that. So people said to me, now don't think about all the bad stuff. Don't think about it. Just wait. Don't think about it. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but nobody is not going to think about a situation. And number two, how often do we impose our own viewpoints, not just on our animal and human family members, but on the people around us, right? And it's very intriguing. So this is where mind and spirit are coming into this situation too. And I said to someone, I wish people would quit telling me what to think and how to feel, and instead call me up and say, we're having a coffee date on Skype at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, or how can I help? Or do you just want to talk? Or do you need to go for a walk? Or what? Or something, instead of saying, don't think about it, because that is not helpful. And we think about a lot of things in life. When we know people who have lost loved ones, human or animal, it's awkward. Like, how do you say I'm sorry and mean it? And you mean it, but how does that comfort them? it's awkward. We don't teach our kids how to deal with awkwardness in life. And the other part of that is, what if you know someone who has a terminal illness? I mean, you go up to them and go, hey, you want to go out, and look at tulips? It's like, we need to kind of think about what our response is to the world and how that comes into play. And here we're in each week when we gather together here, we're talking about things that affect our souls, and our souls affect our bodies. So, body, mind, and spirit is all coming together in here in my family crisis, which I'm sharing openly with you, and how I responded to that. So here's a little bit more about how I responded. I look at what happened. I think, oh my God, a month went by from what I thought was an accident. We evaluated him at his vet's office. We thought he had a pulled muscle. Clearly, we were wrong. There was no indication of something else. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? But we're dealing with this particular situation. This is how it's presenting itself. Do I feel guilty? Yes. Need to get past that. Need to move through that. It happened. This is how we're moving forward. And by looking at all of the things that could make us feel less than adequate, to me, it helps boost us up and help us feel more adequate, more responsive to the situation. Like, okay, I think I could have done better there, but I didn't, and now we move on. And that's how I deal with things. But I know from clients who come to me, especially when their beloveds have died or when they're in a crisis like we are right now, not knowing what the future holds for my young dog, you can beat yourself up over things that didn't go right and forget to live in the moment and forget to find the grace and the salvation, if you were, in that particular time. So what we've done in the last few weeks is we've always spent a lot of time together in my family. I carve out time to be with my dog and my cat because we are family. But I've also taken time to explain to Ollie what's going on, to try to hear what he has to say and feel about it. And he's pretty much a happy boy all the time. But I've also taken time for myself, gone on some walks, been in nature, had coffee with friends, a few things to keep life moving, but also taking time to work with my spiritual team and Ollie's spiritual team. So here's one thing I would like you to remember when you're dealing with a crisis of some kind. Always call on the spiritual teams involved. We don't always think about that. I mean, in the crisis, you're thinking about, I need a veterinarian, I need a human doctor, you need hospice care, or what you need, a pharmacist, you need all kinds of things, right? And you look at the options, but you really need the spiritual teams, right? So what I'm doing is sitting down and discussing this with Ollie's spiritual team, but also, and here's something I want you to remember, there are other beings out there besides our spiritual team members, or spirit guides or whatever. And they are what I call spiritual specialists. There are doctor specialists. There are veterinarian type specialists. There are soul healers. There are all kinds of specialists out there, but you have to ask for them. So you go to your spiritual team, and in this case, Ollie's spiritual team, and say, hey, go out and find the people who deal with vertebra issues in dogs and bring them here and start this healing, and please help us, right? Because they're there waiting for us to call on them. So that's one really huge thing that I want you to remember. And as we're looking at, again, more body, mind, spirit issues, when you have a crisis, it's okay to feel inadequate. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to say, wow, I wish I'd done something different. But look at those things and then let them go. It doesn't help you to be stuck in grief or to be stuck in saying, I should have done this and I should have done that. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what you're doing moving forward and how you can make sure something like that doesn't happen again if that's possible. since we're not really sure exactly what happened to Ollie and he refuses to tell us. Kind of embarrassed, I think. I gathered that he had an accident while I was gone and was too embarrassed to speak up, and it was more serious than we thought. So be mindful of yourself during a crisis. Be sure to take care of yourself first. And I know that sounds scary. And in a situation where Ollie was in crisis, it was all him right then. But you have to remember to keep boosting yourself up, to do your self-care, your mindfulness, connect with nature, go out and be in nature, be there for your family, be there for the one who's actually going through it, in this case, my dog, and be there for yourself. Sometimes we forget, and so we need to ground back down into our bodies, bring body, mind, and spirit together. Take a deep breath and then move forward step by step. There is grace in all things, right? Grace isn't just part of happy days. Grace is very important when you're in a crisis of any kind. It's acknowledging that we're asking for help, we're helping ourselves, and our spiritual teams and whatever other beings that you may believe in or need to believe in are there supporting you as you're supporting the people in your family. And that's what family life is all about, right? Through thick and thin. So fill yourself up with grace in a crisis. Let grace be part of your life. Be mindful of that, be nurturing, and, if you have to, forgive yourself for being human, right? If an accident, I slipped on the stairs the other day and, almost fell down the stairs, and even though I was being very careful, and you're like, okay, back up, be very, very careful. So I hope this gives you some ideas of how to handle a crisis. And it didn't occur to me until so many people were telling me what not to do based on what they thought, that nobody was responding to me in terms of what I needed. And I hope this will give you some clues as to how to approach other people who may be in crisis and who need a hand up, right? This community is here for all of us. So pull together body, mind, and spirit. And if you need something, reach out here on these weekly broadcasts and let us know what that is. And I'm going to check to see if we have some comments here from people. But first, I wanted to share Crystal of the Week for you. And in terms of nurturing and support and getting grounded and balanced and being mindful moving forward, smoky quartz is a great crystal to have in your crystal collection. I don't really have smoky quartz. I have Fallon, my citrine Lemurian quartz, who's in the other room today, and all different varieties of quartz. But quartz, while it can appear clear to us, a smoky quartz kind of has a grayish cast to it a lot of times, and a lot of people are very drawn to it. And it's great to help you get grounded and balanced. It's also great to clear out stress and worry. So when you're in a long-term situation like we are right now, clearing out stress and worry is really important. Because when you clear your mind, you can make decisions that are more sane and more solid and that are helpful for you. And it will also keep you steady. So in an emergency, think about the smoky quartz crystals. It's a great thing for being nervous, for getting grounded and balanced, and neutralizing our emotions, right? So there you go with that. So thanking everyone for chiming in and saying hello. Thank you, Margarita. And thank you for chiming in and saying hi. Julia says, this reminds me, do the best you can. When you know better, do better. Julia, it's perfect. Yes, it is. And thank you for appreciating these down-to-earth real life examples and ideas, as you say, because, it's just really surprising. And Samantha, thank you for saying I'm strong. Boy, I'm not sure I am all the time. Ollie came into this world. He's a reincarnation of my previous dog, Alki, And all my dogs seem to have shared the same soul, even when I had two dogs in the same house. And that's a story for another time, and many of you have heard it. But Ollie came into this lifetime with a huge job to do. And I said to him the other day, "You're only 4.5. In your previous lifetimes, you didn't step up to your world work until you were 5. I am not raising another puppy. So you need to get well for your sake. And I know you want to." And so I guess that's a boost for all of us. I hope none of us have to face a crisis, especially a life-threatening one like this. But, there's a lesson in everything. And never, ever, ever say it's all for the best or it's what's meant to be. I don't believe in any of that, because I've had a very difficult life, and I would think that all the things that happened to me were meant to be. I would think that we're being punished. And I know we're not. I know for a fact that our souls take human bodies, and being human is a really tough job. It is not the all great important thing that we tend to think, which is why it's a hard job. But I hope you treasure each other, that you treasure all the members of your family. And when somebody's in a crisis, say, "Hey, coffee Thursday at 10," or something that is more than preaching to them and telling them what you think, as opposed to, "Hey, what can I do?" We're all in it together, right? And if we did this on a regular basis, if we went out and said to our neighbors, to our cities, our countries, "What can I do for you?" Imagine what kind of a world we'd have. And, our countries are alive, our cities are alive, they all have souls. So think about that. We'll have that conversation in other weeks coming up. So thank you for being here, all of you, for sharing your comments. And we'll be back next week. I try to be here every week at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Things got out of whack here this year as things got going, but I am starting an online mentoring group, $25 a month, where we're going to work on, it's a month-to-month meeting. We're going to work on really tapping into our intuition and growing our souls by tapping our intuitive and healing abilities. Very practical stuff. Online mentoring with me, a group for you to share together, and we're going to cover everything from talking with our dead to talking with animals to how we use intuition in our daily life. Because here's the thing, Ollie got injured a month before he started screaming. That was a Monday night when he started screaming. On the weekend, I'm tuning in to him and thinking, something is broken. I don't like the feeling. And I thought he had cracked a rib, because my guess is that he had run up the stairs to the bed and slipped off of them. And that was the side that was injured. So Monday afternoon, I decided that on Tuesday, I was taking him in for x-rays just to find that fracture that I thought he had. Well, it was in his neck, not his rib cage. But this is the kind of thing that my online mentoring group is going to cover. How to tune in and how to pay attention and what to do next. So it's all very practical. But if you're interested, or if you have a question or comment or want to tag me on Facebook for something, find my Facebook page, The Practical Intuitive. Catch me there. Thank you so much for joining me, for listening to my story. I hope it helps. Sometimes the most important things that we share are our daily life experiences, and then how mind, body, and spirit come together to help us. It's, we're a complete system, and taking advantage of it is important. It's how we keep moving forward in life, all growing our souls together. So thank you for joining me. Let me know what other subjects you'd like to cover. And as we close out today, there's a goddess who taught me this energy healing technique. Hands on the heart. Breathe into your hands, feel that energy there, and just allow it to nurture and support you. You can always hold your hands up and allow that energy to go where it's needed in the world, but then bring it back, getting yourself grounded and balanced back into your body. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Take care.